A lone snow leopard tracking prey in the dead silence of the Himalayas, etched in snow and shadow. The air up here doesn't move the way it does in the valleys. It's thinner, so thin it whistles inside your ears when the wind creeps through. Narrow stone cracks. Up here, in the dead silence of the upper Himalayas, sound doesn't travel far. It's swallowed by snow. And silence is alive. The snow doesn't crunch loudly. It crackles. Slow, deliberate, barely a whisper. Just the sound of something ancient moving across a ridge too narrow for comfort, too quiet for peace. 18,000 feet above the world, time doesn't tick. It drags. It stretches. It hangs in the cold like a cloud that never drops. The sun rises with no warmth, no mercy, just light bouncing off ice like knives. And every shadow cast is a warning or a secret or a grave in that light. There's no shape to see. But something is watching. She doesn't blink. She barely breathes. Her fur matches the rock and snow so perfectly the world forgets she exists. But she does. And she watches. She's been watching for hours. Her eyes, pale green, rimmed with age and instinct, have not moved. She's perched between two granite slabs, her long, powerful tail curled around her haunches to keep the wind off the raw pink skin beneath her fur. She's still. Perfectly still. As if the mountain itself had grown eyes. The world below her moves. A herd of blue sheep graze near the edge of a slope, careless, relaxed, unaware. She knows their routines better than they do. How the youngest drifts from the center. How the old ones falter at the rear. She doesn't need to guess. She only needs to wait. But this moment, it isn't about prey. Not yet. It's about her. She's not young, not anymore. But she isn't old either. Not in the way that makes her weak. She's something in between. She's carried the weight of too many winters on her bones and fought too many ledges to be soft. Her flanks bear scars, thin pale ridges carved from battles no one saw and victories that only meant she'd live to wake up hungry again. No one calls her name. No one waits for a return. She doesn't have cubs hidden in a den, not this year. She hasn't seen another of her kind in seasons. That's what the mountains do. They keep things apart. They make solitude a law, not a choice. The cold doesn't bother her, not like it used to. Now, it's just part of her skin, like the wind, like the silence. She's become something the storm respects. But even gods need food. Even shadows need blood. This isn't a game. This isn't a dance. It's not the dramatic spectacle humans love to romanticize from behind glass lenses and narration. This is the raw truth. Up here, you kill or you starve. You chase or you vanish, and no one mourns the fading paw prints. There is no audience, no music, no mercy, just white rock, wind, and the space between a heartbeat and a fall. Right now, in this moment, her heartbeat is slow. Almost dangerously slow. Her entire body, built like a ghost carved from muscle and patience, is conserving everything. Because when the time comes, she'll explode into motion like lightning tearing through a silent church. But not yet. The mountain tests her. It throws icy gusts across her face. It shifts snow beneath her feet. It dares her to flinch. She doesn't. She hasn't moved for 6 hours. This is her gift. Patience deeper than the roots of the peaks she walks. Hunger that sharpens her mind into steel. Eyes that see without being seen. To the sheep below, the world feels calm. But their skin twitches every so often. A strange unease. Something primal stirs inside them, even if they can't name it. It's the kind of feeling passed down through 1,000 generations of prey. That feeling that something, somewhere, is watching, and it is she always has been. Because this isn't just a hunt, it's a way of life carved into her bones. It's the memory of her mother's last hunt. It's the ache of starvation. The echo of a cub's cry she no longer hears. It's the mountain whispering, "Prove yourself again." Every scar on her body says she has, but the mountain doesn't care about the past. It only gives her today. She licks her nose. The cold stings. The wind rises, a rock shifts. A sheep turns, but still, she waits, because when she moves, there won't be a second chance. Because when she strikes, it will be fast, final, and full of every quiet rage the mountain has ever swallowed. And Until that moment comes, she remains a breath held in white silence, a ghost in stony lone snow, leopard, etched in snow and shadow, the birth of silence. The wind in the high Himalayas doesn't whistle for the living, it howls for the newborn. She came into the world wrapped in a blizzard, a breathless squall of white fury, where snow buried even the silence. There was no sunrise that morning, only the dull blue glow of stormlight bleeding through the cracks in the stone, and the trembling pulse of a heartbeat too small to be heard beneath an overhang carved by centuries of wind and time. She was born, slick, fragile, and blind. The cold reached for her immediately, eager to claim what hadn't yet taken its first full breath. But something else reached first, her mother, bone thin, scarred, and fierce enough to defy winter itself. She pressed her body around her cub like a shield of fur and blood. She didn't move. Not for the storm. Not for the pain. Not even when the snow caved in at the ledge's edge. Her only instinct was to keep that warmth in. That warmth was her tiny paws twitching, nose rooting against her mother's chest. A heartbeat finding rhythm beneath a thunderous, frozen sky. She had a brother, too. Another heartbeat. Another small soul. For a few days, they nestled together in the cradle of their mother's ribs, feeding on milk warmed by hunger and desperation. For a moment, they were safe, but the mountain doesn't love. It doesn't forgive. He was smaller, slower. And when a second storm came, meaner, louder, hungrier, he faded like mist beneath her nose. His warmth disappeared in her sleep, and the next morning, she sniffed his body but didn't understand why he no longer twitched. She cried, then fell quiet. Her mother did not mourn with sound. She licked him clean, carried him out into the snow, and left him in the wind. Only one cub returned to the den that day, and it was her. She learned early that the world gives no answers, only signs. Only the sharp smell of coming danger. The sudden silence of prey. The shift in snow beneath your paws that tells you where to step next. And so, she grew. Slowly. Carefully, her mother taught her with the language of movement. No words, just precision. When to freeze. When to crouch. How to use the wind. How to feel the slope with her feet before looking with her eyes. There were no games, only drills disguised as play, peekers darting between rocks, marmots chirping. Warnings, birds lifting into sky when the wind turned wrong. She chased them. Sometimes caught them. Sometimes missed. But always learned. The narrow cliffs that sliced the sky didn't scare her. Not because she was fearless, but because her mother showed her how to dance across ledges with claws that barely touched stone. She fell once. Slid 5 feet before her mother's jaws clamped onto her scruff and pulled her back to safety. No growl. No scold. Just silence. That silence taught her more than any sound ever could. Seasons changed, snow melted, then returned. The herd paths shifted. Wolves came and went. Vultures marked the air with slow, deliberate circles. And she kept growing. Her body thickened. Her tail stretched. Her lungs grew wide enough to hold the thin, brittle air that ruled the high passes. And still, she followed the quiet rhythm of her mother's steps, always half a pace behind her shadow. Her world, until one morning she woke up alone. The den was empty. Cold. Her mother's scent still clung to the rocks, but it was fading. Fading fast. No blood. No fur, no sign of struggle, just absence. She called out once. Just once. A sound no one heard but the wind. Then she waited. A day, 2. Hunger stirred. A 3rd day. A 4th. The scent was gone now. Only snow. Only sky. She moved on because instinct doesn't allow for grief. It only makes space for hunger. For movement. For the next step. She hunted clumsily at first. Missed often. She bruised a rib chasing a hare down a slope too slick with melt ice. She starved for 6 days before finally catching a bird too injured to fly. It didn't matter. It bled warmth. Her muscles hardened. She found new ridges, learned to read the sky differently. She followed the blue sheep from a distance, too scared to strike, too hungry to leave. She watched a wolf steal her kill once. Watched it from a ridge above and didn't move. Couldn't. She wasn't strong enough yet to fight. Not then, but she remembered, and slowly, day by day, rock by rock, her body became something to be feared. She began marking. Scratching at ancient stones. Rubbing her scent against twisted pine trunks. claiming places where the snow fell differently. Territories her mother never showed her, but that called to her nonetheless. She was alone. Entirely alone. No call had been answered in a year. Not even an echo. Her voice faded into her chest, but solitude became her kingdom. She walked paths that no foot had touched in decades. Climbed passes no bird dared fly over, slept beneath stars so close they felt like embers in the dark each hunt carved her into something leaner, colder, more precise. She carried memories the way she carried muscle, heavy, useful. Always underneath the feel of her brother's still body, the warmth of her mother's breath. The moment she realized she was all that remained now, she moves like stone that remembers it was once molten. Slow. Powerful. Absolute. She doesn't stalk for pleasure. She doesn't kill for sport. She survives because the mountain told her she had no other choice. And yet there are moments, rare, fleeting, when the wind shifts just right and she swears she can smell her mother's fur. Moments when the moon is too full and her paws step into the same rhythm her mother once taught her. Moments where she pauses, not for prey, not for danger, but for something else, something missing, something lost. But then the cold returns. The silence sharpens. And the mountain reminds her, feel it later, move now. And so she does, not because she wants to, but because she must. Because survival isn't something you win, it's something you carry, something you wear on your back like fur, thickened by winter after winter after winter. And hers is heavy, but she carries it anyway. Alone, always alone. The hunt begins. The world is still, but she is not. High above the river of air and ice, where the silence is so complete it feels carved from the bones of ancient gods. She sees them, shapes moving like whispers. Blue sheep barrel grazing along a broken ridge across a vast chasm, dusted in moonpale fur and unaware. The hunger inside her rises like old smoke, slow, acrid, unforgettable, not desperation, calculation. She lowers herself without thought. Her belly presses to the cold rock. The cliff beneath her ribs is razor thin. One wrong breath and gravity will claim her, but she does not hesitate. She never does. The wind moves. She listens. It bends around the rock face, curling behind her shoulder. Favorable, the scent won't betray her. Not yet. Below her, frost shatters like glass beneath the hooves of the herd. She watches them not as prey but as a map. Each shift of weight, each blink, each low bleat becomes a coordinate in her mind. Their rhythm is sacred, and to break it would be to lose everything. She rises, a ghost inside her own skin. Step, pause, step, stillness. Hours pass. The light tilts toward dusk, and she becomes the landscape itself, part snow, part wind shadow, part myth. Her paws move without sound. Each toe spreads like a monk setting down a sacred object, each claw held in restraint. Her body is not a body, it is a weapon being unsheathed. 1 inch at a time. A pebble loosens, rolls. She freezes. The sound, a single note in a cathedral of silence, is flick among the herd, but no eyes lift, no panic. Yet the mountain spares her, for now she waits minutes, then longer. The sun folds into the ridges. The cold begins to gnaw. She does not shiver. She cannot. To shiver is to burn precious fuel, and she has none to spare. She moves again. Her legs ache, but the mind overrides the muscle. Every movement is mathematics. She measures the angle of incline. She senses the weight of her own breath. She calculates the collapse radius of loose shale and decides 1 more foot. No further. She stops. They bedded down. The blue sheep have lowered their guard beneath the shoulder of stone, chewing slowly, breathing in rhythm. No fear, not yet. She lies flat like death incarnate and waits. 1 hour, 2, 6. Snow begins to fall again, soft, dispassionate. The sky empties itself without mercy, and still she does not move. The mountain tests her, but she has nothing left to prove, only something to earn. A pulse beneath her teeth, one chance to keep the fire inside her alive. Another day. She is the silence, she is the weight, she is the breath held by the world itself. And the moment is coming, not now but soon, and when it does she will unleash everything, not because she wants to but because she must. Flashbacks during the stalk. The snow beneath her pads sings in whispers, faint echoes, vanishing almost as they form, but every step is etched into her memory, because this is not just a stalk, this is a remembering. She crouches low against the earth's cold breath. The blue sheep still graze on the other side of silence. She waits, unmoving, her breath shallow, her hunger deep, but the mountain does not let her live in the moment. It pulls her backward through to me. A shadow returns, the curve of her mother's spine, that low rumble of warning, that sudden freeze before a leap. Lessons not in words, but in bone and blood and rhythm. She learned to follow wind like it was scripture, to taste the air as if it held prophecy, to vanish into stone, to make herself small until she became nothing at all. But not even her mother could save her from the storm. That blizzard arrived like a beast with no face, white, drowning white, cold threading into her lungs until breath became a battle. She had curled into a crevice Barely more than a heartbeat tucked into rock, the wind clawed at her like it wanted to take her name. When morning came, the world was blank and dead, but her eyes opened, and that was enough. The blue sheep shift in the distance she watches, but the stillness coils around her again, and in it the memory of her first killer marmot, bloated with summer, too slow, too trusting. Her strike had been clumsy, her teeth had missed the throat it squealed, and for a moment she wanted to let go, but hunger is a teacher that doesn't ask permission. She clamped harder, felt the last tremor, and then cried after it was done. Alone, warmed by blood, haunted by softness, the mountain grows colder. Now her scar itches beneath the fur on her shoulder, the one shaped like a crescent from the ram who spun faster than she had expected. His horn had carved her open. She had limped for 3 days, and every night the pain sang lullabies. She had licked the wound like it would forgive her, but the wound only whispered, "You were not fast enough, you were not enough." She blinks, snowflakes gather in her lashes above, the wind drags thin clouds across the peaks. Like tattered ghosts she smells the herd, still close, still unaware, and then a deeper ache, one not of hunger but of longing. She remembers the cry of mating season, the moans in the wind, the scent of males woven into the air, but none came, not to her, not then, maybe not ever. And so she walked the ridges alone, not because she wanted to, but because being alone was safer, quieter. The heart breaks more cleanly when no one hears it. She shifts her weight, the cold gnaws at her bones. The sun begins to dip behind the cliffs. 6 hours she has waited, the hunt still breathes in silence, but inside her a storm rises again, not of snow but memory, and something older, something wilder, a vow made in blood and wind and silence. She will not leave this mountain empty, not tonight. Thestrik, the mountain holds its breath beneath her body, a shadow pressed into the cold granite spine of the world. She has not moved in hours, but her blood has not stilled. It sings, it burns, it whispers of the moment before rupture. A single strand of her body trembles with redness and restraint below her. The sheep drifts through snow that conceals nothing. Each hoof step punches silence into the ice-crusted powder, and she counts not with numbers but with something older, the slow throb of muscle memory, the ache in her claws, the whisper of the ghost who taught her to wait. The wind hushes, the mountain leans forward, and her heart becomes a fist in her chest. The leap is not a decision, it is a release, a lightning flash born from starvation and silence. She erupts from stone, her breath held like a blade. The snow explodes behind her like memory shattering, and the sky blinks, then a blur of thunder beneath her paws. The sheep spins too late, a snap of hooves, a scream lost to wind, fur, claw, flesh, momentum, but the rock betrays her. A shift, a slip, the weight of hunger overreaches. The sheep escapes with a final lurch. Its blood is not hers, and she lies in the echo, chest heaving, snow sinking into the warmth of her fur like tiny knives, eyes locked on the vanishing white shadow that was almost salvation. Her ribs cage emptiness, and her mouth tastes only wind. This is not defeat, not yet. This is the language of the wild, mischances written in bone. It happens more often than it does not. For every 10 hunts only one may sing the taste of blood, and still she must rise, still she must walk, because the cold does not care, because the hunger does not die, because failure is not death but stopping is. So she sinks into the snow, lets it take her breath, for now lets the ache fold around her like a second pelt, and waits for her body to remember that this is not the end, only the beginning of needing again a second hunt. The snow tastes different when hunger speaks louder than the wind. It is not the fresh flake that falls from above, but the old ice ground under tired paws. Dry powder clings to the fur between her toes, stiff and bitter and numbing. 4 days now without flesh, 4 days of stone and wind and bone. Her belly is hollow but not quiet, it groans in twisting knots, a slow torment that echoes louder than any roar. She does not roar, there is no point to warning the void. The only audience here is the mountain, and it does not care. She walks slowly now, but not because she is defeated, because every step costs something, because her strength is coin and she is spending it deliberately, because failure has memory and it has shaped her bones. The ridge falls away beneath her and she does not flinch. A sheet of ice cracks underfoot and she lets it pass. No panic, no noise, only recalibration. She has learned the weight of silence. It is heavier than fear, more valuable than speed. She has not hunted, she has endured. That is the difference. The first hunt was hunger turned desperate. This one is hunger turned patient. She is no longer flailing at shadows, she is listening to them. Then, like a ghost crossing another's dream, it comes, a scent carried on the tail of the wind, faint but unmistakable. A male, older, sweat slicked and unaware, her eyes narrow. There is no celebration in her gaze, only recognition. This is not a miracle, this is mathematics. She is owed this. The scent coils into her lungs and becomes fire. She exhales without sound, her whiskers stiffen, muscles contract beneath the spotted shroud of her. The hunt begins not with the leap but with the stillness, and she becomes stiller than the stone itself. The wind favors her now, for once it carries the scent, but not as she crouches low behind a curtain of snow-dusted rock. Her breath shallow, her heartbeat slow, her body held in a vice of absolute focus. This is not eagerness, it is calculation. The terrain is brutal, vertical, unforgiving. Boulders stacked like broken teeth, snow hiding gaps that promise shattered legs. The tar moves across a slanted ledge, chewing at lichens, unaware that death watches from a breath away, but she does not move, not yet. Time slows, then stretches, then folds. The cold bites at her pads, her lungs burn from the altitude, but she does not shift. To move now is to announce herself, and there is no glory in being seen, only failure, only more hunger. The tar stumbles forward, its hooves strike loose gravel. A slide of small stones clicks against the slope, and still she waits. She is a shadow, not a beast. She is absence. When she moves, it is not sudden, it is inevitable. Her shoulder blades rise like wings, then collapse. The body follows a low glide, a melting into motion. She shifts from predator to predator, every muscle answering a call that began generations ago. She circles low, wide, smart. She's learning. The last time she was faster than her wisdom, now she is slower than her instincts. A higher hunt, a smarter path. The ledge narrows. The tar does not notice its world ends at its nose, but her world stretches ahead. She sees the line, the slope where it must turn, the choke point, the kill zone. Her paws meet the snow with grace that betrays her size. Each step a whisper, each movement measured, and the pain in her belly becomes a guide, not a curse. It tells her where to step, how to breathe, what she cannot afford to feel. The final ridge rises before her, a jagged tongue of stone. To reach it is to strike, but it is steep. The rocks are slick with ice, and she is tired. The mountain tests her. She digs in claws, gripping cold cracks, muscles screaming. Her breath shortens, her head spins. Altitude sickness curls in her chest like drowning in a place with no water, but she pushes. The climb is not elegant, it is not beautiful, it is brutal. She drags herself up because down is starvation, down is silence that lasts forever. At the crest she stops. The tar is close now, so close it is within death's breath. Oblivious, chewing existing, she crouches low and waits one final second, two, then the leap. Her body arcs through the air, not like a cat but like a storm. Everything inside her launches, every ounce of pain and patience and purpose. Her claws find flesh, her jaws find spine. The tar bellows once it collapses beneath her weight. The snow around them explodes, dust and blood and silence. It does not fight long. The kill is quick, not clean, but final. She does not roar, she does not howl. She breathes. Her heart beats against the ribs of her kill, and she does not move for a long time. The mountain watches, and this time it does not take. Her jaws drip not with glory, with necessity. There is no feast, only feeding, only survival. She begins slowly. The first tear of flesh tastes like medicine, not pleasure. The meat is cold but real. Her stomach clenches, almost rejecting the offering, but she forces it down. This is not triumph, this is return. She eats in silence, the kind of silence only the dead provide, and the kind only the living remember. Snow falls again, soft, uninterested. She feeds until her legs stop shaking, until her breath deepens, until her ribs expand. She does not overindulge, she knows better now. Survival is not a reward, it is a ritual. She eats because she must, because the body needs what the soul cannot store, because failure is still close and hunger always returns. She licks her muzzle, not with satisfaction, with instinct, cleansing the scent of death from her face so that life might ignore her once more. The wind returns colder now. She curls beside what remains, not in comfort, in obligation. The night wraps around her like old skin. She is not a victor, she is not redeemed, she is simply alive, and that in this frozen place is enough. She closes her eyes, not to sleep but to continue. Rest healing, and reflectio, and the mountain no longer threatens. It cradles her now. 1,000 knives once etched beneath her paws are quiet, smoothed by wind and sleep and the ache of fullness. There is no blood on her tongue, only warmth, only breath, only the echo of the last heartbeat that surrendered beneath her claws. She lies curled against stone, still warm from the sun's long fall. Her ribs no longer sharp blades beneath the skin. Her hunger for now is hushed. The growl inside her has gone to sleep, and in its place, silence, not the silence of fear but the silence of having survived. She licks at the torn flesh near her haunch, slow, rhythmic, a ritual of healing passed down not by memory but by the ancient whisper of instinct. Each stroke of her tongue draws pain upward, then eases it back into the earth, like prayer, like penance, like love. Around her the dusk pulls its heavy cloak across the peaks. The light softens into the blue of old bruises, and the wind moves with a hush, not a howl. Not tonight. She breathes in the cold, feels it nest in her lungs, sharp, cleansing, alive, and with every breath the wilderness presses closer, not as enemy, not as stranger, but as something familiar, something that watched her first breath, something that will cradle her last sleep. Comes not as surrender but as a long-awaited visitor. She doesn't resist it. She allows it, lets it unravel her bones and slide her beneath the weight of dreams in her mind. She sees the path she once followed, not with her paws but with her mother's shadow, a scent, a shape, a ghost made of warmth and memory. She feels the rough tongue grooming her fur, the steady thrum of a heart stronger than storms. She was smaller than a breath, wrapped in fur, curled against ribs that knew no fear, and now she lies alone but not empty, because in the stillness of that dream and the pause between worlds she feels her mother again, not in flesh but in wind, in snow, in the hush that holds this mountain. Was it real, that breath on her neck, that scent rising from the rocks? She doesn't ask because the mountain answers in quiet. And that is enough. Her muscles twitch not in pain but in memory. The long stalk, the final leap, the silence of death and the deeper silence that followed, the kind that only comes when hunger has been swallowed. She does not mourn her kill but neither does she revel. She remembers, that is all, and in remembering she honors the cold, curls its fingers around her again, but now it is gentle, a lullaby, not a threat. She shifts, tucks her paws beneath her chest and rests her head against the stone. The stars blink awake above her, not watching but bearing witness to a creature made not of cruelty, not of pity, but of something older than both. Survival. There is peace here, not joy but peace, the kind that comes when there is nothing more to do, nothing more to lose, no blood to chase, no sound to follow, just breath, just fur, just the quiet. A flake of snow settles on her nose, melts into her warmth and vanishes. She does not stir. Somewhere below the bones of her meal lie scattered, clean, blessed by the tongue of the wind, a tribute to the hunger that drove her and the will that outlasted it. She sleeps, but the mountain never does, and the mountain keeps her safe. The coming storm. The wind shifts, it doesn't whisper now, it speaks in low warnings, rolling down the granite ribs of the mountains like a cold breath from something ancient and rising. She feels it before the clouds darken, before the light tilts in that eerie way that signals something is about to change. She rises from the hollow where she curled her spine into the earth, where rest had touched her, briefly, like the ghost of a mother long gone. Muscles ache as she stretches, sinew sliding over bone, fur lifting with the static tension that now clings to the air. The mountain is no longer still, it groans, softly. Underfoot a storm is forming, not just in the sky, but in her world, her home, and something has trespassed upon it. She moves slowly, deliberately, her paws pressing into the soil, leaving no sound behind her, but the scent is unmistakable, fresh, female and not hers. It curls into her nostrils like smoke, acrid and defiant, a message in musk and defiance. Here I am. Her lip twitches, her pulse tightens, not fear but something more complex, a disturbance in the sacred silence she's carved for herself up here where no rivals should follow. She has marked these cliffs with years of blood and breath. This is not just her ground, it is her story pressed into stone, and now another writes over it, not with claws or roars but with scent presence, a silent challenge. And she stands on the ledge now where the rock cuts against the sky and the clouds rise behind her like a wave that will not break. She watches the valley below, the hollow she's walked 1,000 times in hunger and solitude. She knows every ledge, every crevice where the wind coils to rest, every shadow that can swallow her shape when prey passes near. But now the territory hums with unfamiliar rhythm. She tastes it on her tongue, change. There is no mate beside her, no cub pressed against her ribs, warm and alive. There is only memory and instinct, and the question, does she stay and defend what no longer holds life, or move deeper into the cold, higher into the unclaimed places where nothing is written yet? Her breath thickens in her chest, and somewhere in the back of her minder flicker a shape in snow, a cub once buried against her side, breath steaming softly in the night, gone now but still moving in her. She could fight, she has before and won, but the cost was always carved into her, scar by scar, silence by silence. And this moment demands not fury but clarity. There is no audience in these mountains, only the judgment of survival, and it waits now for her to choose. The wind pulls harder, the clouds have begun their slow descent, fingers dragging cold across stone. She turns her head not toward the intruder but toward the peaks above, where the air is thinner, where the stars feel nearer, where no one has yet dared to step. She steps forward, not in retreat but in rebirth, a single motion, a decision made not in fear but in quiet resolve. She climbs, every limb burning with purpose, every breath a statement. She will not defend ruins, she will carve new sanctuaries in higher stone. And as the first flakes fall, slow, wide, and silent, she disappears into the rising dark, high, always higher into the storm. She no longer fears the future unknow, and the mountains no longer roar, they whisper. The storm that once threatened now sleeps, curling into the folds of the Himalayas like an old ghost too tired to haunt above. The stars burn cold and ancient, distant and uncaring, yet somehow still watching. She moves through the silence, a pale shadow brushing across a high ridge dusted with fresh snow. Her breath unfurls into the air like a final prayer, faint, fleeting, beautiful. Every step is a memory pressed into the earth that forgets nothing. The wind tastes of yesterday's hunt, of the blood she spilled to live, of the hunger she still carries like a wound that never scabs. Her muscles ache beneath the thick winter coat she was born to wear, but no warmth lives in fur alone. Only motion saves her from the bite, only motion makes meaning out of loneliness. There is no path ahead, only possibility, only instinct, only the echo of her own heartbeat in the dark. She does not know she is rare, she does not know. We follow her with eyes that will never touch her world. She knows only the now, the sting of cold in her lungs, the sting of fading strength in her legs, the snow beneath her pads whispering that it is always here. Even when all else fades, she halts beneath a ledge. The moon cuts across the sky like a blade made of ice and time, and a silhouette is carved in its silver, trembling with the weight of survival. No mate calls for her, no cubs wait for her return. But her solitude is not emptiness, it is history walking on four silent paws, it is defiance in a land that yields to no one. She blinks once, slow she listens, not for prey, not for danger, but for the quiet, and in that quiet, something answers, not a sound, not a sign, but the mountain itself, alive, breathing, unmoved and eternal. She is not seeking an ending, she never was. Every movement forward is a rebellion, every breath stolen from the cold is an act of grace. She belongs to nothing, and yet everything in this realm has made room for her. The snow gave her cover, the wind gave her warning, the shadows gave her silence, and time gave her the right to exist. She turns, continues dissolving into the white, into the silence, into the myth that shaped her bones. She will not remember us, but we will never forget her. Not the way her shoulders moved like a tide beneath fur, not the way her hunger taught us about need, not the way her solitude echoed like a truth we often hide from. She may never know she was seen, but somehow through her we saw the wild again. We saw what it means to endure without applause, to ache without complaint, to live without permission. This is her story, a lone snow leopard, the spirit of the storm, the silence that moves, and she walks on forever unseen, forever unforgettable. The wind no longer howls, it whispers now like it knows her name, like it knows what she gave to survive. She does not look back, she never does. That is the law of the hunted, and the cost of being born to hunt. Her breath hangs in the air, not from fear, not from cold, but from a quiet that weighs more than any mountain. Her shadow slips across the snow, long, lonesome, like the ghost of something the world forgot how to love. She walks though her limbs ache and her wounds sting, though her prey has vanished again into the void, though her hunger has only deepened. She walks because this is the only rhythm she knows, the pulse of pursuit, the silence between heartbeats above her. The stars burn holes into the sky, and the moon, silver and merciless, casts her in light that is too clean for a predator, too honest for pain. But she does not flinch from it, she never has. Somewhere down in the dark valleys a herd trembles at nothing, a raven lifts from a tree, a stone rolls without cause because she passed and they felt it. And though she may never know, we were watching, never sense the breath we held, never feel the sorrow that clung to every step she took. Still she gave us something, she gave us a glimpse into the sacred where instinct wears a crown and hunger walks on shattered ice, and loneliness becomes legend. So now as the sky cracks open with the song of night and her paw prints vanish beneath falling snow, remember her not for the blood, not for the chase, but for the way she carried her silence like a prayer through a world that gave her no altar, no witness, no promise of tomorrow. You've been listening to Creature Class, where every story teaches us something rare, something real. If this journey through the heart of the Himalayas moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to follow more silent hunters, wounded survivors, and wild souls across every continent. Let your next lesson be one of instinct, endurance, and grace, because in the world of Creature Class every creature is a classroom.